Welcome to the Gateway API community meeting. It is March 17th, and we've got a pretty light agenda today. I think I recognize everyone here, so probably no need for intros. But just a reminder, Kubernetes community meeting means Kubernetes and CNCF code of conduct apply, which just means please be nice to each other. Also, don't imagine this will be an issue with a light crowd today, but I would also ask that if you have anything to say, please use Zoom's raise hand feature. It just helps keep things simple and make sure that if someone does want to add something, they get the chance. The other thing I would say is this meeting notes doc should be open to everyone. So please go ahead and add anything you'd like to discuss to this doc. With that, Nick, I think you're up first.
Yep. So I I was reviewing the changelog for 1.3 and thought of a few things that I think might help us be able to do releases a bit easier, which hopefully would translate into faster. So yeah, I just wanted to put them on here so that we have mentioned them and that people have a chance to talk about them, think about them, so we can talk about them more later. Yeah, the first one is I think we should make feature names required for the transition to experimental. So even if there's no tests yet, part of moving a feature to experimental is coming up with a feature name for it and recording that feature name in the correct places. And turns out there's a couple of places where you need to record that feature name that we haven't been. So the other thing that I've got to do today is to go through and check a few feature name related things. Yeah, and then the second one is, and to make that easier, to add a checklist of steps to do at each stage to the gap template, so that it's like, hey, you need to update this file, and you need to add this in here, and you need to move the gap in the make.yaml in the table of contents and stuff like that. And then the stretch goal, once we have a checklist, is to write tooling to automate that checklist, so that hopefully there should be only one place where we update, and then we have tooling or something that does the rest of the updates for you. Even if it's just a make command, if you only have to update one file and then you run make and then it fixes everything up, then that would be good.
Completely agree.
Yeah. So so I just wanted to sort of put that out there, see if anyone else had thoughts.
No, I think this is overdue. Thanks for writing this up. I think translating it to an issue or PR would be great. But yeah, I think just having it somewhere is better than nowhere at this point. So thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the tooling things are a great thing that would be great for a new contributor to pick up. They're not going to be difficult tasks. They're just gonna, they're gonna be a bit fiddly. Yeah.
Cool. And then for conformance, you were just saying.
Yeah, I just wanted to. I think that we should make it official that this is how the tooling currently works. Thanks, Christine. That if there are skip tests, then the conformance file won't show up in the comparison tables. I think we just need to make sure that we write that down somewhere. That hey, if you skip tests, then your conformance report is kind of informational only. You can't have conformance for an object if you are skipping tests for the object. You can't. So a better way to say it maybe is there's no point claiming support for a feature if you are skipping tests for that feature, because that will rule your whole conformance report out. And I think that's the right way to say it.
There was some confusion with a recent report that came in that had skip tests where removing a feature would have been a better way to solve that, but it's not obvious because we haven't written it down anywhere. So yeah, I agree. Making that clearer would help everyone out, because otherwise you end up with this confusing state where conformance is showing something that you don't want.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, that one in particular, I wanted to see if anyone else had any feedback on, but yeah. Cool.
All right. Good enough. All right, so 1.3, this is hopefully real soon. But we've run into some issues. Mattia's PR to actually fix this issue in the milestone is failing pre-submits. I think that's um, unfortunate. I'm hoping it's just a code gen issue, but anyway,
Yeah.
that's blocked on Mattia right now. Um, This one, if there's anyone who's been working on the retry budgets, one of the features, one of the bits of feedback we got that was pretty clear from the SIG Network review of the API is that we currently have two fields, budget percent and budget interval, that really could be nested under a struct. And the rationale is if you have budget foo in the future, you're really going to regret not having them nested in some way. I don't know how likely that is, but still, this was
Makes
preference
sense.
of API reviewers there. Made sense. So hopefully a tiny change, but just wanting to get this in before we cut release candidate.
It is
Uh,
it is blocked by Mattia's other PR though, so we gotta wait for that.
Oh, right. Yeah,
oh, okay.
they're gonna I mean, you could do something here, but you'll have to rebase after Mattia's
Yeah.
thing gets through.
Because yeah, the object is gonna be changed to X blah blah blah.
What's the
Mattia.
timeline for a release candidate that we're expecting?
Like as soon
ASAP
as possible.
yesterday.
Yes.
Okay.
So
I was gonna say
honestly, at this
I could
point,
probably make this change tomorrow, but all
yeah, I
right.
would say if you get a PR in, that's great. If we have to deal with if Mattia has to, I'm volunteering Mattia for work here, but if Mattia ends up being the one who has to deal with the rebase, it's okay. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want to take this one, Mike, then go ahead.
Yep.
Thank you. Actually, let me volunteer you a little bit more.
Yep. So I mean, it sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks. All right, and then next up is I think this is a really tiny one in that the last time I looked at this, I think the validation we have is stricter than the validation we need. So we should loosen this, but if it doesn't hit by RC1, maybe okay. I don't know. I need to take a closer look at it, but yeah, this one is a bit less concerning for me. This one is also we have something. Sorry, this one is one that we have a PR ready to fix, and it's just fail. It just needs another run of code gen. So hopefully this one is okay. And then the last one, dependency updates. There is someone who's been working on this, who's a new contributor, and they've really been struggling. This one is painful because up until the latest patch release of Kubernetes, of the 132, Kubernetes 132, this was broken because register gen was broken in the latest release of Kube. A patch update should have fixed that, but now the person who's been working on this ran into another problem. So I don't know. This one, if it's possible that, yeah, it's Darshan, um, who's been working on this and has been chatting on Slack a bit, but yeah, unfortunately, very painful to do this particular upgrade. And if it doesn't get in, we usually always try and release with the latest version of Kubernetes dependencies. But if those dependencies are broken for us, then there's only so much we can do. I don't want to delay forever on this one. So if anyone has time to help out and diagnose problems here, it would be great. But my reaction right now is that there may be some further issues here that are not easy to resolve in this time frame. Okay, Anything else to say on 1.3? I mean, I'll just say we're trying to get this out as soon as possible. If you see something in the 1.3 milestone that doesn't have an owner yet, and you feel like you can help out, please do. We can use all the help we can get, and I really do want to get the RC out this week. So yeah. All right, the last topic is also mine, and I wrote up a short little doc which is very, this is very tied to a presentation I'll be giving at KubeCon this time with James, one of the maintainers of Ingress Nginx, and with Ingress Nginx recent announcement that they will be archiving the project and starting up a new project called Ingate that will focus on Gateway API. I really want to make this succeed for them and the broader community. And that requires us as the Gateway API community to be invested as well in this transition, right? Ingress Nginx as a Kubernetes SIG Network subproject is basically a sibling of Gateway API. And as this spins down, and as it's part of this overall story that Gateway is the future, I would love for that to be a smooth and straightforward migration for users instead of painful, annoying, frustrating experience, right? So that's a goal. Obviously, Ingress Nginx supports a very large number of features. I think last I counted, there were over 100 annotations that are supported by Ingress Nginx, and Gateway API in its current form supports a bit less than half, equivalents to a bit less than half of them. So that leaves a non-trivial feature gap remaining. So what I wrote is what I think are the goals here are: one, enabling a smooth migration for anyone using Ingress Nginx to migrate to Gateway API. At the same time, we want to smooth over gateway pain points and provide a mode that feels as simple as Ingress if possible. And then finally, we want to, this is not just a lot of the work here may be focused on an easy path, easy migration from Ingress Nginx, but I imagine the broader community will benefit by making it easier for any Ingress user, even if they're not using Ingress Nginx, to migrate to Gateway API. So with that said, we have around 1.5 years left before Ingress Nginx project is planned to be archived. And that doesn't leave us a lot of time, especially with our current speed and trajectory. So one of the things I'm hoping to do and push for in the next year and a half is accelerate our release schedule. As Nick says, this is ambitious, but got to try at least. And that is, let's aim for a minimum of 3 releases in 2025 and 2026. This, of course, this is only going to be possible with broad community support and participation, but hopefully this, can bring the community together and we can get some buy-in from many of the Ingress Nginx users and maintainers to help us push this across. At the same time, if there's one part that might be controversial in what I'm saying here, I'm not going to be a good predictor of that, is that I'm suggesting that we add slots for Ingress Nginx features. So if you've paid attention to recent Gateway API releases, we've said for every new feature in experimental channel, something has to leave experimental channel. And that has served us reasonably well so far to avoid experimental channel getting too large. But I think that would make it overly challenging to fit in the timeline that we need to meet this archival. So what I'm suggesting instead is that for the next 2 releases, or the remaining releases of Gateway API in this year, hopefully, that we would leave 2 additional slots unique for Ingress Nginx features, for features that are intended to provide compatibility with Ingress Nginx capabilities. I'll add a lot of caveats here, right? This is not trying to push things into Gateway API that would otherwise not meet our criteria, all the same criteria would apply. We're not going to lower our standards. We're not going to allow things that only work for Nginx or Ingress Nginx. Like, the only things we'll let into this API are going to meet the same standards they always have. This is only about increasing our velocity for getting features out there to make an easier migration experience for Ingress Nginx users. That's it. But yes, the key thing, we're not going to accept any features that can only be implemented by Nginx, or that cannot be securely done. This is just about improving velocity. That's all. Any questions on this point, or comments or concerns?
I think that so yeah, go Mike, go.
No, I guess like my initial reaction is the spirit of this makes sense, given that like in other prior issues, like before any specific consideration of Engage and like archival procedure, that we identified significant adoption, current adoption of Ingress Nginx has been a impediment of some sort to Gateway API adoption, because so many people are already using features which are not yet available. So like from that side, like even future of Ingress and Nginx aside, the spirit of this definitely makes sense in terms of just like charting the roadmap that we actually need to hit in order to keep increased adoption. I think I'm a little worried about like the sustainability of it. Feels like we're already still struggling with like reviewer bandwidth and timelines to be able to like actually get in the features that we've already committed to. And yeah, I would just worry about like sustainability of moving at that pace with the bandwidth available from the folks that we have currently.
Yeah, no, I think that's entirely fair, and good feedback, right? I think that this is taking on more, we still have a bottleneck, and that bottleneck is reviewers, right? We can only move so quickly as long as that bottleneck exists. And so a part of this will need to be to get more people to the point where they can help review things. I'm cautiously optimistic that I'll be able to get one or two people from Google to help out here. Hopefully some other organizations can help out as well.
I'm
And
potentially interested in that as well.
That'd be great. So yeah, I think this is something that only succeeds if we all, jump in together. It's certainly a risk, but one of the flaws with our current system is that we open up, a fixed number of slots, and then even, let's say that a couple of those don't make it into any given release, those have basically become wasted slots, right? So right now, like this past cycle, I think every cycle we've had at least one that didn't make it through. And I'm not saying that's like obvious.
I would call that a feature, not a bug, because like
yes,
the reason we do that is to give folks some incentive to actually put work into their feature, right? Like like what was happening before that is that before we started that system is that we'd end up with 20 people trying to push forward features, and
yes.
like the few of us who do have time to be gap reviewers would not be able to review them all, and so like it would lead to bad feelings and sort of but I wasted my work all around. Whereas here, this is intending to give us a mechanical way to represent the fact that the core gap reviewers have limited bandwidth, and there's a certain amount, and reviewing gaps is hard work. Like it takes a lot of time and effort, so because you have to think very carefully about things like a lot of the time, like I know like I may put like 4 or 5 comments on something, but that took me like 3 hours to read through the gap and like draw out some diagrams and think about like like it's pretty common that reviewing gaps will take hours. for a single get.
Yeah,
And so
and cross check all the RFCs, and
yeah,
yeah, yes,
exactly.
it's awful.
And so
Yeah.
that's what I meant by, like, it's achievable if the community comes together, by which I mean it's achievable if, folks pony up some time to actually do get reviews.
Yeah.
Like, like right now, a lot of the get review load has been on, Rob and me and Mattia, and a couple of other folks who have been helpful with get reviews, and I really appreciate it. But like, we can't do that. We can't do 3 releases a year with more features with the same number of get reviewers. It is not possible. So yeah, so I would love to see us do more releases and have more slots for doing cool stuff with Ingress and Nginx, but unless we have more resources in the reviewer pool, then we will not be able to do that.
Yeah, that's entirely fair.
Yep.
This is meant to be a North Star vision, and we'll see if we can hit that, but it absolutely requires people to come together and commit to review time, right? That's all it, at the end of the day. We can open up one part of the pipeline, but if the bottleneck remains, there's not a lot we can do. So yeah, on that note, if anyone on the call, I know we've already seen Mike mention it, but anyone else that might be interested in being more active in gap review, we need your time. So definitely, we're happy to get more reviewers on board, even if you're new to the process. Would be great to have people ramping up.
And look,
So
I am very happy for folks who are new GEP reviewers who want some. Yeah, I mean, there's a few things that are really important about folks who are new GEP reviewers. Number one, it's really valuable to have GEPs be reviewed by people who haven't been working on Gateway API for 5 years. So that the perspective of newer folks is really valuable, because a lot of the time, I forget about when I'm using jargon and things like that. But also, if folks are a bit intimidated, and doing GEPs is very intimidating, I am happy to like set up calls with folks and stuff to like pair on going through GEPs and sort of walking you through my thought processes as I'm reviewing them, and try and get a bit of like knowledge transfer in that way as well, if need be.
yeah, I remember Tim has done some live review sessions like that before. I think some other Kubernetes maintainers may do that too, and it's been incredibly helpful. So yeah, if there's interest, happy to help out there. I think between Nick and I, we probably cover a pretty wide set of time zones. So hopefully you can find time with one of us, if you're interested. But yeah, cool. Okay. Other points in here, hopefully less controversial. One, if we want this to succeed, we need ingress to gateway to be really compelling. And I think it's, Lior, you've done tremendous work here. Actually, a shout out, Lior was on Kubernetes podcast last week, I think it went out, but covered ingress to gateway and other things, and it's really great. So yeah, I mean, that's something that we will need to pay attention to here to really make the migration process as smooth as possible. I also think that if we're trying to convince people to move from ingress to gateway, including the replacement API by default in Kubernetes would be real helpful. That's, I know, a larger topic of discussion, but I think it's, again, trying to provide parity or similarity to ingress. We want the experience to be as simple as possible. And related to that, there have been some discussions about exploring how we can simplify gateway APIs, such as, can you use HTTP route standalone? Can you, is there a default gateway? I don't know. There's a lot of interesting topics here. I just wanted to call out that that's an area we should be thinking about. It's not just closing off a list of features. It's also trying to make the overall UX simple or simpler than it is today. And finally, I left some Q&A here, but I, from the outside looking in, you'd say, okay, well, Ingress Nginx sure feels like it's getting some special treatment here. I get that idea, but ultimately this is not so much special treatment for Ingress Nginx, the project, because the project is being archived and going away. We're just trying to provide a path forward for the many users of the project to Gateway API. And to be very clear, we're not trying to prioritize any individual gateway implementation. This should benefit every implementation of gateway, hopefully equally. But yes, we're just trying to provide a smooth path from one SIG network subproject to another.
I think that's the key differentiator here. Is that Ingress Nginx is like a SIG network owned implementation of Ingress, and so that's one of the reasons why it has. I mean, it's got a very big market share of like people doing Ingress. A lot of people use Ingress Nginx because it's there and it's upstream, and it mostly works for a given value of works, and so like that's the biggest reason why Ingress Nginx gets like a bit of extra consideration here, is because it's also a SIG network subproject, same as API is. So
but
one thing that I think Rob, you didn't say explicitly, but I do want to be explicit about is we are still not looking to make anything a reference implementation or to sort of anoint a main gateway API implementation or anything like that. Like this stuff is about making sure that the current biggest Ingress implementation has the users of that implementation have a path to pick up any gateway API implementation and be able to get off Ingress Nginx onto any other gateway API implementation.
Yeah, 100%. And this kind of folds neatly into my last point here, which is really just, can your own project get the same treatment? And that's sure. If you're an Ingress controller and you want to archive your Ingress controller and you just want to provide a smooth path to Gateway API in general and not any specific implementation of Gateway API. I think this project is open to supporting any of that, but I think, there aren't that many Ingress controllers that are looking to be fully archived right now, certainly not ones as broadly used as Ingress Nginx. And like Nick kind of mentioned here, the thing that makes Ingress Nginx particularly unique is that they are, SIG network subprojects. So we feel a particular responsibility to ensure any users of that project have a good migration path off of it. But certainly, I think anyone working on Gateway would like to help encourage other Ingress users to migrate off of Gateway. So if there's ways we can help that off of Ingress into Gateway, so if there's ways we can help that, I think we're very open to that as well. But Ingress Nginx is just particularly unique here. So yeah, I think that's all. Open to any comments, questions, concerns on this doc. If I don't hear anything significant, I'll just rely on some lazy consensus here. This will be a theme of our talk at KubeCon in a couple of weeks, where we'll be going through these general ideas and how we want to enable Ingress Nginx users to migrate to Gateway API. All right. Well, I think that maybe took us to the end of our agenda. So this was a really quick meeting. Any last points, or give everyone half an hour back? All right, cool. Well, thanks, everyone. See you.